Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident Podcast, a weekly chat about socially conscious topics impacting the culture. And welcome to Sambaza, host and creator of the Sambaza podcast. He is a two-time nominee for Best African Diasporan Podcast by the APVA, and he is from the Republic of Kenya in East Africa. He also has been a presenter at the Afros and Audio podcast festival discussing Pan Africanism, and he is slated to be an ambassador for the 2024 Afros and Audio Podcast Festival. Welcome, Sambaza. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. Ready for another week.
Definitely glad to have you here. Really exciting show for you guys to hear today. We do have a special guest. It is a content creator. We love to share with other content creators, and so definitely excited to bringing another podcaster content creator for you guys. This person has launched a new platform, and we definitely want to celebrate and share about that. So, yeah, any thoughts, Simbaza, before we get to our guests?
Oh, I'm excited to have our guest today. I think this will be one of those topics that I really wanted to get into, especially because it does affect most of us. Um, a lot of people don't realize it, but it does affect a lot of us who are at work and even in the social spaces. Yeah, this is something which is going to be exciting.
For sure. And so our next guest, um, is a content creator and founder of the Boss Locks Media, and he has launched a new podcast called Working While Black. And he may go down in history as the first person to play a Kendrick Lamar song during a LinkedIn Live audio space. So, so without further ado, Walter Gaynor, welcome.
What's going on? What's going on?
Hey, how are you, sir?
Welcome.
I'm doing good. I keep forgetting about that LinkedIn audio event. You remind me of it. And I picked so do you remember what song it was? I want to say it was either Element or Be Humble.
Yeah, I want to say it was Element, and I
Element,
just
yeah.
it blew my mind, and I just I've never seen anything like that before.
Shout
So,
out to
but yeah,
Kendrick Lamar waiting for his response to Drake. But yeah, that's a whole other conversation. Thank you all for having me on. I'm excited. This is like
yeah,
kind of I've been on like a hiatus for a minute, so it's kind of weird being a guest again. So it's kind of cool, just like getting that kicked off with y'all because I know y'all, and it's like okay, yeah, I can warm up. These are my people, so no, I really do
yes,
appreciate this.
for sure. And then we shared that we are a content creator, entrepreneur. Tell us about the new platform that we'll be talking about today.
Yes. The Working While Black show. It's a podcast that actually was an evolution of honestly just a lot of insecurities. So I got my published content creator badge by launching a show that was aimed to prove that natural hair and professionalism do coexist. Started to
Mhm.
lean more into cultural conversations, and then when I got the opportunity to be a part of this accelerator program, what I pitched was a concept of working while black. So I created a bunch of content around it, some live shows, live interviews, spoke to like some really amazing people, and it was received so well that by the time the program was over, I was like, okay, yeah, no, I want to bring it back, but I don't want to just rush into it. I want to take the time to make sure that I have everything in a row, intellectual property and like
Mhm.
together protected. So I got to trademark all this stuff, and took me a minute, but it was time. It's been time. It's been time for real. So now I'm really excited to launch it. It's like a mixtape for your career, exploring
Yes.
advice and career growth and entrepreneurship. So
We love that. And congratulations on that. We definitely will have that link posted as this is a newly launched podcast. So we definitely want to support it and share that out. Sambaza?
Okay. And my question would be this is the first question. As somebody who spent a majority of as my adult life working in corporate America, we truly
mm.
appreciate your content, and I'm sure you as well. Uh, how has that come about, giving you motivation for working while black?
kind of giving me motivated for it.
Mhm.
Honestly, so uh, this show, like I mentioned before, kind of started from the evolution of my own insecurities. So the reason I started this whole journey was because I was feeling discouraged about my own career growth, self-conscious, and just insecure, all the things, imposter syndrome, felt all of it. So there's a lot of things I was discouraged about, but I also knew that there was this kind of delicate dance you have to do as a black person in these
Mhm.
corporate environments. I was concerned about well, just knew that companies could legally just not hire me, disqualify me as an applicant just because they didn't like my hairstyle. I can't see
Mhm.
it now, but got locks. I've had them most of my life now. And yeah, I just there's just that was just one of many things. And then honestly, when I think about, like, I guess the question about motivation, it's like I started this because I was trying to learn how to navigate professional environments, learn how to grow in my career, explore entrepreneurship. But the real motivation is when I hear stories from other people about things that they've gone through. Stories of people who are literally getting like full page ads taken out in the paper to justify getting suspended in school. That's happened
Mhm.
so many times in Texas. It's wild.
Mhm.
So just hearing stories from people, it's like you just get fed up, especially when it's like we're just out here just being ourselves, not really doing anything. We're just trying to be a part of the American dream or whatever.
Right.
And it's just kind of ridiculous. So um yeah, I mean I have stories of like not getting a raise because I was told, you're just too new. But then learning that a colleague of mine is getting paid $5 to $10,000 more than me, and so is a person who was just hired and I trained up and everything.
Mhm.
They also started off higher than me, but now they're not even going to consider giving me a bigger raise than what they did because I was new or whatever, and the youngest and all that stuff. And it's just interesting. Just it's just so many things we have to go through as black professionals that isn't really talked about. There's lots of advice about how to grow in your career, how to get a job, how to go through the interview process, but nothing that speaks to the nuances of being black. So created this show not even for mass appeal. It's been received very well outside of our
Mhm.
culture, which was actually surprising to me. It's also been met with, some, I won't say resistance, but just kind of like um maybe just not people just not paying attention to it, or just kind of
Mhm.
disqualifying it as something that's not for them, which is okay because
Mhm.
it made it for black people. But yeah, it's
Right.
honestly just to provide resources, share information, kind of create this place where we could all kind of come together, not in a hierarchy way, like, oh, I did all this success, I'm bigger than you, but not people who are have experienced life and want to share it with everyone else. It's like each one teach one mindset. That's really what the show is.
Okay.
I love that. And in your content, you have conversations with other professionals and identify these types of behaviors, like you mentioned, microaggressions, for example, which
hmm
a lot of Black professionals have to deal with. Why do you think Black professionals have to continue to have these types of experiences, like the microaggressions in the workplace?
Why? Because of racism, honestly.
Mhm.
It's just all kind of stems back to that. But you know what's funny? What's kind of funny is sometimes with microaggressions. I mean, there's a lot of different reasonings for it, but it comes from either kind of subconscious or conscious biases and prejudice, and whether it's intentional or not. But sometimes it comes down to people like just choosing to believe that racism doesn't exist anymore because they hear stories of what happened in the '60s. And it's like, oh, it's not like that anymore. It is, but it's just not as like normal and in your face,
Mhm.
kind of, if you're not paying attention. So I feel like a lot of people that just growing up just being like, oh, don't see color, oh, we're all one, we all have the same advantages, access, you have so much more opportunity and privilege or whatever than people in other countries, like all these different ideas that people grow up with who aren't black, to the point where they won't even consider that there are differences. And then when we're all kind of forced in one environment where we're kind of come from different cultures, those differences are there. And when you don't necessarily assimilate over, there's resistance that exists as well. So I think it's like cultural differences, choosing to like not believe that racism even exists, so that someone's like to bring something up, they won't even acknowledge it. They'll just continue to kind of harass you and harass you, be like, oh, now you're just difficult to work with, all this
Mhm.
stuff. So
Mhm.
why it exists, there's like a plethora of reasons on what to do about it, and how to kind of take control of your career. That's kind of a lot of nuances there as well. But I would always kind of point towards racism as the
Mhm.
root cause of it, and people choosing not to understand where they may be in the wrong, or why this environment isn't an inclusive one for everybody.
Hmm.
Okay.
Good point.
Yeah. So let's talk about emotional intelligence, right?
Mm.
And how does it tie to microaggression? Like for example, if you experience microaggression at work, right? In your opinion, what's the best way to deal with it from an emotional intelligence stance?
That's a good question, especially for the emotional intelligence stance. All right, so um, I don't think there is a best way to deal with it, to be honest,
Mhm,
because when
mhm,
you are experiencing a microaggression, is going to cause some type of emotion within you, and sometimes that emotion, like it's just something you feel, and you could either choose to ignore that feeling or embrace it, or so it also depends on the person how they deal with their own emotions as well. But I never think there's like a right or wrong way to deal with something. There's people who will just like go ahead and call someone out right then and there, and that's
Mhm.
in line with who they are and their characteristics. And I think that can be beautiful. It can cause additional problems, but that could also mean that it's not the right place for you at all. Honestly, anytime there's a microaggression and you address it and it's not received well, I would say that might not be the best place for you. Me personally, I'm not a call you out right then and there type of person. I'm more of a someone, if I'm experiencing something and it's causing problem and I can't really do my job anymore, I am someone who will just like leave, because I'm not going to spend my time trying to fix this place that's kind of toxic and messed up. I don't want to spend my energy like that. But I do think it's important to always acknowledge what's happening and what's happening to you. If you are able to kind of speak with either a manager or with trusted colleagues, but even with those two things, it can be dangerous, because you might not know who you're working with. I know one time I kind of entrusted something with somebody, and they meant well, but they brought it up with the person who had a problem with, and that didn't
Mhm.
solve anything at all. It made it 10 times worse. And I had no intention of
Mhm.
bringing up with that person. There was actually someone else who was higher up who I knew I would have an opportunity to share it with. But that person I shared it with, they was like, oh no, we're going to do something about it, cause just additional problems. So I
Right.
don't, that's what's kind of sucks about it, right? I don't think there's
Mhm.
like a solution, like a flip the light switch kind of solution to microaggressions. There's different ways to go about it to protect yourself. But part of the problem with all of this is that it's the person, it's the kind of the culprit who has to really make that change if they really want to. And when that person's in a position of power or authoritative figure over you, as a supervisor or maybe just an influential employee at work, it could be hard to call it out and it be received well. So I think in those
Mhm.
situations, that's where human resources should come into play to support employees. But even in those situations, there could be additional like gaslighting that exists.
Mhm.
Them looking to, okay, we're going to do something about it, then you end up getting let go. There's a lot of different ways it could go wrong. So it's honestly kind of
Mhm.
like depressing when you think about it. But I think that there are things that are helpful. Like, are y'all
Mhm.
familiar with employee resource groups, ERGs?
I've heard of that. Is that
Yes,
something that every employer should
yes.
have?
I
Okay.
believe so, regardless of the size. And I'm not an expert on these, but essentially support groups. They're usually like in like colleges, there's like student clubs and stuff like that. They usually
Right.
have to have some type of like teacher faculty liaison. We're part of it for it to get approved to be an official student organization.
Hmm.
And with the ERGs, it's kind of similar in the sense where it's something that's recognized by the organization, supported by the organization. The organization will contribute resources to making sure that it exists. And that employee resource group is a kind of like a safe space in a way where you can go and be with people who are similar to you, whether it's race, gender,
Mhm.
just whatever kind of makes you unique or whatever culture you belong to. There's different types of ERGs that you can join, and that's like I think a really great advocacy um, aspect there. So you're not going up against your whole entire organization. You're getting the
Mhm.
support of people with you. They're usually at large corporations, but there's something that like you can form just with a couple of people.
I've
Okay.
got a question with that.
Yeah.
Um, this diversity managers that they've been hiring due to having to learn the diverse
Hmm.
environment that we have at work, and you deal with a lot of people that are not from the same culture. Have Are they working, or based on how many of your shows that you had and you've talked about
Mhm.
this? What's your take on that? Have they been a program that is it a program that's working, or does it
Mhm.
bring in more tension into the workspace?
Oh, I think that there's tension that comes from people implementing some type of diversity program
Hmm.
that is a sign that it can be working actually,
Hmm.
Okay.
because we're talking about implementing a program where things are brought to light and people are kind of forced to acknowledge what's going on. I mean, think about Kaepernick kneeling during the games. Everyone was so mad because you know what, a common thing that was said, and not just amongst white people, but black people too. They're just like, I just don't want it in my sports. I'm just here to watch sports. It's like they
Okay.
did not have the choice to ignore it. They had to look at it in order to enjoy the game, right? And I think that and that caused tension. They're like, I don't want that. I want to escape. I want to enjoy the beautiful game of football. And
Mhm.
people have a right to feel how they feel, but that tension, that resistance, that initial reaction, it does something. I think energy isn't a negative or positive thing. It just is. And it all depends on what you do with the energy. So, um, DEI, critical race theory, whatever the latest trending thing is, it always like forces you to acknowledge what's going on. And people don't like that. They want to just go like stick to what's working for them and blah, 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 blah. So everyone's going to say it's not working, but, and it won't work, and the times where it won't work is when people choose to get rid of it. Like there's a woman named Mary Frances Winter. She runs the Winter Solutions Group. It's been around for a long time. And I remember she was sharing once. It was during the pandemic. She just got a new client, a CEO of a large organization, and she started working there to implement some DEI stuff. She was outside consultant, but he basically, I don't know if he fired her or she was like, nah, this ain't working, but he just wasn't, you know, uh, he didn't like what was being shared.
Okay.
And so in that sense, he's like, no, we can't do this. So of course he's going to say it doesn't work because he's choosing
Mhm.
to not let the whole process happen. So I think that tension is a good thing. I think that it's uncomfortable to a lot of people. I get uncomfortable when I have to explain racism to people. I don't like it, but
Mhm.
it's part of growth, right? And I think growth is all about kind of being comfortable with being uncomfortable, putting yourself in positions to grow, to have some of those growing pains. I have this shirt called "I Love New Growth," and it's been part of my brand now. Working on making the merch official and back out there and everything. But
Yeah.
the whole concept, it came from the natural hair movement and the whole ugly growth rate. Like right now, I have all this new growth sticking out and everything's not twisted up yet. And that's something that we always like, in the culture we hide that we don't want it to be seen and everything. And especially when you're growing locks in that first part, there's that whole ugly phase. But that shirt, it kind of came to me, and it just became a part of the whole brand. I love new growth because it's all about just embracing that moment of discomfort, that ugly phase, and just accepting it as beautiful, part of the process to grow. So I don't think that the world has given DEI enough time to see its success. I think we're in the early stages of it. Like people just learning that Black Lives Matter. So I mean, it's going to take a minute. It's working.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I have a, and with that, I also want to chime in on that because we have all nuances in Africa. You know, when you cut your hair
Mm.
and have a bald head, they always assume that you are somebody who's been to the penitentiary, or you you know there's that weird connotation that they'll say that you're bad if you have locks. They would associate that with the Rastafarian group and say that you smoke weed. And one of the things is that that's the poster child of of a person who's not to be counted on, right? um, these are the African nuances that we have at our workplace. And I don't know if they translate over here. Maybe I need to come to your show and kind of hang out with you and have this
Man, you're always
conversation.
welcome. You're always welcome. Yeah.
And we also did one thing about that. I know from Clubhouse, we had a conversation on my podcast, which we did about discrimination at work as an African. And people
Mm.
really expressed themselves of how we are looked at in a different aspect as African, not as an African American. There's that differentiation on how we move in those spaces. I don't know if you've had to deal with such a situation on your podcast or in real life where you kind of see if they merge together or something like that. The
Um,
same experiences.
Similar. I
Right.
think that what was a surprise. Like when I started this, like when I say it came from insecurities, I mean insecure, and I think like a lot of people feel that way because I think we're kind of conditioned to feel like we're the only one, we're the only person experiencing this problem, which you start to internalize it a bit
Hmm.
until you start speaking about it. So it wasn't until I started asking more questions that I realized a lot of people had either this exact problem, a related problem, a parallel problem, or something that was so it looked indirect on paper, but it was really just kind of looped around and kind of started at the same place and ends up going in the same direction as well. So, like specifically to what you're talking about, with like in regards to natural hair and how people are associating it, absolutely. While you were talking, I just thought like, oh yeah, Rastafari, and definitely in America, everyone just assumes that. Like shout out to Bob Marley, they love him and hate him at the same time. Um, yeah, I definitely have gotten that. I I think that for me, in my personal experiences, I've always felt that if someone has a problem with my locks, it's probably like they might just think it's just a hair thing, but it's really just an extension of how they view black people in general. Because people are going to just assume that I do this or do that. And I would say in America, people will associate it with, uh, weed or some type of like criminal behavior or just a lot of fear associated with looking at you as like dirty and everything as well. Um, so yeah, but I also, people get that for just being black as well, shaved head. I don't think the shaved head in America is looked at as negative. If
Mm-hmm.
anything, it's just like, especially because like black people, like when we shave our heads, like something you don't even know if they're balding or not till you get up close. So yeah, no, I don't think there's any associations with it.
Now, it's interesting you brought up the hair thing, and that Sambaza shared that Black African people have these preconceived notions about hair. You were on my podcast, this show, before Walter on episode 79, season 3, y'all.
Hmm.
And we had a conversation about the Crown Act legislation and and so we talked about these news stories, like you mentioned a few just a bit ago, where people are experiencing unfairness in matters of the in the workplace or in schools, even with young children, because of their hair. um Even with the Crown Act, which is not everywhere, we're still seeing are you still seeing this prevalently, with the hair matters?
Yeah, yeah. And for those who don't know or aren't familiar, the Crown Act stands for create a respectful and open world for natural hair. is something that I first saw it passed in California statewide, and then it was passed in a city in New York after that, and it's slowly been state by state, being if not adopted, talked about. It's been talked about in Texas, Georgia, everywhere, and each time there's like a story associated with it. Like it's just every year a new story kind of comes out, at least one, at least one. Years ago, it was a high school wrestler who was he had during a match, during a competition, he already winning all these matches and everything, and then the referee person was like, "Nah, your locks can't do it. It's not regulation. You either cut him or forfeit the match," and he was forced to cut him right then and there. And his teammates supported him, but with the decision, but really they should have stood up for him and be like, "Nah, that's not a thing." So that
Right.
happened, I believe, 2020. Then there was just in Texas, there was a student who, good student, but all of a sudden he was suspended, not for anything he did, but because the school actually implemented a new policy on dress code. And in that policy, it said for boys, your hair could not be below your ears or past your shoulder, one of the two. Now, granted, this is a new policy implemented like in December. He was already a student there, been a student there. They just implemented it. He was like, "Nah, I'm not cutting my locks," so they suspended him. They suspended
Mhm.
his either younger brother or cousin as well. So that happened. That blew up. Huge story. He actually was really, really supported by the culture, and it was kind of beautiful the type of support that came through. And it got to the point where it looked like Texas was going to pass the Crown Act, but like this past year, basically happened again in Texas at a different school, and there was someone who actually put out like a whole news ad out to defend the decision to suspend the student. Like we're talking about people investing all this time to suspend a student because of their hair, not because they're bad in school or anything, but because of, once again, racism and what their idea of professionalism looks like. So the Crown Act is so interesting because it's been discussed federally, it's been discussed in every single state, and it has yet to get passed. It almost did. Cory Booker was a big uh, political advocate for it.
Mhm.
And it's so interesting, like especially right now, where we see like the TikTok ban getting passed so quickly, but a ban on natural hair
Yeah.
is just like not. And part of it is because the way they introduce bills, they throw a lot of stuff in there. Like with this TikTok
Mhm.
ban, the TikTok ban is actually one thing amidst a whole bunch of others. Like there's a support for they're sending a whole bunch of money to Israel, to
Mm.
Ukraine, and they're also banning TikTok. So I think the same thing happened with the Crown Act, but at the same time, it's just interesting which things get passed so quickly and which things get talked about for years and years and years and years and years.
Yeah, I
It
think that
seems like
was in
mhm.
Houston. It was in Houston that
Okay.
that guy was having a problem, the boy, and it went
Mhm.
up to I think the Supreme Court of Texas, and
Mhm.
still they didn't win, but it was like wow.
Went far.
It baffles a lot of people. Even baffles me. I mean, we're talking about hair. Yeah, it's crazy. But
Yeah.
Jen, we got some comments here. We need to introduce to welcome some.
Sure. You want to
Yeah,
start at the top?
sure. Ed Campbell says one love family, and my friend Ali Badawi. He actually hosts a show on Friday, a Kenyan show,
Mhm.
Okay.
one mic show, and say Sambaza to the world. Kenny Groom, Finger Red, number one. Welcome to the show. And Audio Oasis Storytelling Podcast says, "Hello, everyone. I bring you greetings from Harlem, New York City. Walt sent up a bad signal, so here I am. Thank you so much for joining us."
Okay.
Oh, what's up? Okay, I know that. Yeah, what's up? Thank you. Appreciate you.
Yeah. All right. Well, we appreciate the comments. Certainly getting in the hang of being live because normally, we haven't always done that, but definitely wanting to, get into some new practices to keep the podcast fresh and all that. So we
Okay.
appreciate
What's out
Walt.
to y'all? I
Yeah.
appreciate being a part of like the early stages of y'all going live. Y'all are doing a good job, I think. But
Oh, thank
yeah, a lot of
you.
people forget about people who are watching in. And so I was like, hold up, now we gotta speak to the people. So I love that.
Hey,
Love
man.
that.
Hey. Gotta bring them in. Gotta bring them in.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shout out to that.
Absolutely. Oh, what's up,
So,
Kenny?
my next question would be regarding your content on LinkedIn, which is a great source of career guidance. You were kind of like a tester for LinkedIn.
Mhm.
Question is: are there any additional topics that you felt were eliminated and not given adequate attention in that space?
In that space, topic. So,
What did they miss out?
oh, from my content or
Yeah, on LinkedIn, what did they miss out in terms
mm,
of the content that they gave you with career guidance?
gotcha. So, I think what makes LinkedIn great is the people
Hmm.
that are there. It's not really okay, well, let me say two things: the people, the other creators who are on the platform, the people who are using the platform, and actually are a lot of really great people who work at LinkedIn. I got to meet a lot of people who are kind of the reason for the creator program existing. I was actually surprised by how many black people work there.
Nice.
And you know what, to be honest with you, when I think about what's missing, um and almost feel like this gets you might get me kicked out of like the LinkedIn island if there is one, but just like the conversation around why a lot of black creators have lost access to
Hmm.
LinkedIn. So
Hmm.
before the creator program in 2022, I was only kind of on LinkedIn. I did use it, was able to connect with a mentor who helped me to get my professional career started. Shout out to Ryan Shaws. Um, and met a lot of wonderful people on it. Once again, the people there are great. But before the creator program, there was this whole huge thing where a lot of black creators were getting kicked off. They lost access to their account, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know the whole story, but it just felt like it happened, and then all of a sudden, nothing. Creator program happened. A lot of black creators were in the program. I was surprised. Um, and then afterwards, I just remember, I don't know if it was last year. Yeah, it was last year. Isaac Hayes the third. He's the founder of Fanbase,
Mhm.
an innovative social media app, and he was fundraising for fan base because he's doing a community based fundraising where literally anyone can invest on Start Engine. Um, and he got his account restricted. He went through the process, be like, what's going on? And the reason that he got was basically they were like, you can't be using this to raise money for your software. So it's just like things like that that are like, it just kind of gives me a question mark, like what's going on? What's going on here? And I just seen like people that I know personally just all of a sudden like that lose access to their account and they barely even use it. So it's just kind
Oh,
of odd to me. So I say if anything that's missing, is like that true accountability. With that being said, what I think is beautiful. Oh, and then also another thing is there's a lot of black women who are very active on LinkedIn and advocating for us and equality and everything. And there are a lot of trolls and people who just like embody white supremacy on that platform. I mean,
on
they exist.
LinkedIn?
Yeah, they exist on all the
Oh
platforms. I'm not
my
saying it's worse on LinkedIn.
goodness.
Like everything that I'm talking about happens on every single social media platform. So it's
Okay,
not even
okay.
like a LinkedIn that's worse. It's just
Yeah.
what's different is that you can see where people work. So it's just so weird that people are
Mhm.
just ready to just say some sexist and foul stuff to people.
Mm.
So yeah, a lot of and I don't really see a lot of support for um for them. And
Okay.
it's just odd to me. So I would say that's what's missing, I think, from like accountability, especially when we talk about working while black and
Mhm.
psychological safety. It's like some of that stuff's always in the back of my mind when I'm on these platforms. That the trolls are out there, and when you speak up, they got a problem. They got a problem. So
Okay, let's get into a couple of comments. This one is about the LinkedIn. Sambaza, you want to catch up on the?
Sure. Now I have a audio Oasis storytelling podcast. It's Stephanie,
mhm.
Okay.
who's saying, "Yeah, great show so far. Loving the content."
Real quick,
And
Stephanie, I knew it was you when you said Harlem and Bat Signals. Just though that two combos, like, oh, I know that. Yeah, what's up?
and Kenny Groom says, "Where do we begin on the content that LinkedIn is missing?"
Oh,
And
okay.
there's also, he says, the harassment on LinkedIn, especially toward Black women, is madness.
Oh
Mhm.
Can
wow.
you divulge more about it? Have you experienced it? Walt?
I've
Or
seen it.
seen-
I've seen
Right.
it. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen it. I've seen it, and it's crazy. So I think the what one example is very very small compared to what I've seen, because what I've seen is like some true like violence. But when I was getting trolled a little bit, I remember speaking about creating content around hair natural or hair discrimination, and there was someone who came up and he commented on a lot of my posts actually. So he must have been following me. So that's the same thing. Energy is a weird thing. People put energy, but they just choose to come back. It's so weird. But he basically, it was a post that I made calling out people for hair discrimination and the lack of appreciation. I think there's a football player who they just didn't like that that player had locks, and they were like, oh, it's not
Mhm.
professional, you're representing this and that and this. And I was talking about it, and someone came into the comments and essentially associated natural hair and dashikis, which was like, we weren't talking about that at all, but
Mhm.
they associated those two things with clan robes and hoods and stuff like that. And it was just wild. It like took me aback, and I was just looking. I
Mhm.
remember just looking at that comment like, okay, okay, how am I gonna respond to it? But then this is where I talk about where the people on LinkedIn is the reason that I'm still there. They just came through in the comments, and I was like, oh, like in the replies. So I'm like, okay, I don't have to say anything.
Mhm.
Y'all got this one. Y'all got this one. So,
Mhm.
and that's just a small detail. There's people who are kind of uh they'll go as far once again on black women to say like sexually violent things to them in the
Oh, wow.
messages and stuff. And
Okay.
once again, the wild thing is like they have their jobs on their LinkedIn, so they just don't care. And that just speaks to
Mhm.
like the nature of racism and white supremacy, this false sense of confidence that
Mhm.
exists because sometimes they are protected. um they might get, slap on the hand, but keep on
Mhm.
doing what they do. And so someone like choose to say something so outrageous to a black woman just shows like how little people think of them. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. And it's interesting.
Oh, sorry. One last thing.
Oh
It's like
yeah.
these comments that are happening, the sexual violence stuff is like towards people who are talking about racism and stuff. And one thing that is just so like black women is the things they're advocating for are like for while you could be talking well anyone while you could be talking about something like racism, it's like the type of change that's being asked for and talked about are things that truly benefit everyone. Like it's so wild that people like we're asking for like the very bare minimum, and people are like nah, you can't get that bare minimum, hell no. So sorry.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's just so odd, and it's like that doesn't warrant
Yeah.
any type of harassment, especially at that level.
Wow. There's another comment there. Let's see.
He did stop commenting. He did stop commenting.
Oh, okay.
We'll see now that I'm back. We'll see if he comes back because I swear he was following me. He had to be.
Oh wow. And I guess people run into that. Like you said, on many platforms, I have a side hustle where I'm reselling on a couple platforms, and one is Whatnot. And it's
You're
like a
an
live.
influencer on that platform, right? I remember you
Well,
got.
I'm a live streamer, and I sell my items there, and sometimes people get trolls, right through that
Mm,
live stream. I, haven't had anybody, attack me, but I have other people, it happens a lot, you know what I mean, from insulting what they're selling to just personal attacks on, your person or anything. So I guess just social media, period. These types of things can happen.
absolutely.
Hmm.
And I think I was looking at this. There was a video when I was searching for yours, working while black, and these were women who were talking about it. It's on YouTube, and they were talking about having your squad or your crew whenever you're in these spaces. And I think you already alluded to it right now, saying that you had people on LinkedIn to be able to assist you when trolls show up, or when you undergo things like when we talk about microaggression or something happens, somebody talks about your locks, when will come and touch your hair. Jen, you know how it is. Don't touch my hair. But some people are still not used to that. They come, they touch your hair. And I think if you have your crew or your people who stand by you, they'll probably be able to support you and be able to understand you and be able to sympathize with you. Now, I don't know what the crew will consist of. Will it be of people of your own color or people of a different color that will look at it from a different perspective? That is yet to be found. What do you think? What are your thoughts about that?
I think that so, um
Like I
so
said,
I
if
haven't
something
shared it.
happens bad,
Yeah,
you come, you right around with us, and you be like, "Hey, man, I didn't like that comment that dude came up," and then we rile you up. We're like, "Okay,
yeah.
Walt, this is what's going on," but at the end of it, we tell you, Walt, look, this is how you engage in this space, and this is what we think they should do. Maybe you need to
Mhm.
talk to HR. Maybe that's not what the person may have stated. Kind of, we try to explore all those options. So that type of crew.
Yeah. I'm laughing because y'all both like had like a moment of that recently where it was something where like I wasn't going to I was, moving on, and it wasn't a big deal to me, but because of the
Mm,
crew and really like community, it's a word I always use a lot. One, community held me accountable. They're like, hold up, well, hold up, this happened to you, and then also at the same time, you don't have to do you like be aware of your actions and how you speak and everything too.
mm,
So I think that's always important. And back to like what I was mentioning about like we're often conditioned to feel alone. I think that is that individualism is like a side effect of white supremacy and everything.
mhm,
So that community is really, really special because it's not even just about them out here, fighting for you. It's about holding kind of you accountable as well, being able to, build you up, and then also like, all right, now you better, start moving differently. You better move
mm,
accordingly. Don't just let this type of stuff happen to you. And then also just in that moment, it wasn't even about
mhm,
me as much as like an example as well. So I think that's important. And Sambaza, you mentioned something about like people who look like you and don't. I personally believe that it's important for us to be able to kind of build within our own community, but I also at the same time think that it's ultimate if we really want to live in the world we want to live in, we're going to need everybody um to kind of work together. And I think that seeing the movie Judas and the Black Messiah, because I wasn't super familiar with Fred Hampton. I knew who he was, but just seeing that movie and seeing that scene where he was he just marched into that one I think it was a church during like this clan rally. Then next thing you know, he's like having a speech with clan members and everyone right next to him because he was able to be like, yo, we're actually fighting the same fight, you just don't even realize. I mean, not the same, but our fights
mm,
kind of coming together, we could have a bigger fight. And I think there's another issue that exists in this world, and that's like this classism issue. There's also
mm,
an issue of just kind of just the the influence of capitalism and how that can affect people who just kind of operate from greed and power, and once again individualism versus like collectiveness. So we kind of have to move together. Not everyone has to work with everyone, but I think that we're at this
mhm,
place where we could all move accordingly based on like how we just are. But it's important that we always check in, so we're always on the same page about how we're moving and stuff, so that it's just we're kind of moving as one, but also each kind of tackling different things because we're multifaceted and there's a lot of people who are fed up. So we
mm.
could tackle a lot of things. Um,
That's
yeah, I feel
true.
like I just kind of ranted. Did I answer your
No,
question? Did I get that right even?
You did, you did.
Okay, cool, cool.
I have one
that's
more to throw in. This will be to you people. Why am I using to you people?
You
That's not.
people.
Yeah, you people. I should use you people. Anyways,
you're so
I'm gonna
silly.
be nice and be uh to check my nuances, right? Uh, and it happens to all three of us. Let's talk about the workplace, and I guess we'll all go around of it and kind of get your opinion on this. It feels weird, like working while black. You're the first black person in that company, and then the next person that gets hired that's black. Kind of like when you move into a white community, and then the next white person comes. How does that make you feel? I don't know if that's a question maybe you want to ask people when they come to your show as a standard question, maybe.
I'll use
Um,
that. I'll use that question. I'll be this is a Sambaza question. Yeah. I like that. That's a very good question.
so what do you guys think? I mean, Jen, and maybe then we'll go to you, Walt, when you at
How
work.
does it make you feel to be the
Right,
only?
right, and then
Um,
the first person comes, the next person gets hired is a black person. How does that make you feel?
So it's not a good feeling being the only. And then another thing, I'll say this, and we talked about community and finding your tribe and that kind of thing. Sometimes your tribe ain't there, even if you got other brown
Hmm.
people there, because we all know all skin folk
Thank you for.
and kinfolk. Hello. So don't even get me started on that. And look, the comments will probably blow up just on that alone. You can't really, and like you said, you share some information with someone, even if that person was, someone of your race, it can always be trusted. So you kind of have to hold your cards in the workplace, especially navigating through corporate America and different spaces, even in academia. I'm sure people can chime in with that. So it's not a good feeling being the only, but even in spaces of finding community, hold your cards,
Okay.
Mm.
Well,
No, I like that. You definitely gotta do an assessment. Like
hmm
it's not the assessment that they did with Candace Owens on the Breakfast Club. Like, who's this person? It's like really like are they really for us and everything?
hmm
And yeah, so I've been the only black person in places, and it's annoying. It's very annoying. And when I was in those spaces, I would actively, when there was opportunity, I would push for, the black hire. So there's a moment where, I was part of the interview process on the hiring end. So being able to be in there and interview people, and then afterwards you kind of speak about like, oh, this candidate, this candidate, this candidate. And yeah, I was biased towards the black candidates. But there were good candidates too. That's a whole other thing. People think that there aren't any good black talent, and that's because they're not. It's not even that they're not looking hard enough. They're just not looking. They're just playing it safe. But yeah, it's like kind of really being that community for them. And in that moment, he did get hired, and it was great. He was a great employee. But then I started to see the type of stuff I mentioned earlier, where it wasn't even that there was a huge cultural difference that he like didn't understand how to maneuver. It was like the way they just reacted to him all the time, just little things. It's like, y'all just don't get blackness at all, like teeny teeny little things, and they just start to build up and people start to resent that person. And I remember having a conversation. I was like, yo, you probably should not be here. Like, if you have an opportunity to leave, I would recommend taking it, because these people are going to be like this. So it's like kind of this interesting for me, I look at it as a responsibility to, if other black people are coming into that place, making sure that they have the support and insight needed to make the best decisions for them, and either exist in that organization or find something else, expeditiously. I don't think we need to be in places that aren't, where people don't choose or at least commit to making it an inclusive place. Like forget about like the diversity part, because a big
hmm
issue with a lot of workplaces, they might be great at hiring diverse candidates, but the biggest issue is that there isn't any uh room for growth. There's no way for them to continue to grow into leadership positions. And that's like the, I think one of the last, it's not the last, but it's like one of the biggest, once we're able to, and that's where like the diversity, equity, inclusion stuff comes into play. But people don't want to give up their seats in power. They want to hold it or bring their own people up. So that's the next play, right? Having more black people in leadership, and that happens with either external hires or employee development. So people are kind of moving up. And I think that moving up is when we start to see more inclusive environments, not just a flip of the switch. We had a training. Now we're all woke. It's
hmm hmm
how do we create a ecosystem that stimulates growth, where black employees do not feel like there are extra barriers due to lack of mentorship or just not meeting the right person. that everyone has an actual equal opportunities to succeed. So yeah, that's what's
Wow.
missing. But they're gonna just call people DEI hires for the next 5 years. So we just got to
Hmm.
make it through all that.
Yeah. Sambaza, you have anything else before we going to talk about Walt's new project or any other projects?
So, do you okay? We're looking at concerns in the workplace, right?
Hmm.
That African Americans are facing. What do you what are you envisioning about the next, probably right now? Maybe just give us an idea of how, since you've worked in corporate America, and you're the one on the hot seat, so you're the ones that
All
worked.
right.
um, what do you observe right now, right? What have you observed right now? And then let's look at maybe 5 years from now with the diversity inclusion programs. Have you seen any change, or what would you like to see in the next 5 years?
So another goal of mine for the Working While Black show isn't just about sharing kind of career growth trips or exploring entrepreneurship. Those are like the two kind of main things about, making sure people don't feel alone, kind of talking about different ways to kind of be less dependent on kind of your main paycheck, because we're living in a time now where people are kind of like, yeah, we might need that second job, even though you're making a quote unquote decent salary. But the other part that I think is extremely important is for us to have a better understanding of just really like the people who are DEI specialists and everything, the stuff they're doing, the policies that are being created. I think needs to be more common understandings that everyone is aware of, like the different things that are at play. Because I think there's like an awareness issue both on from like from all the different cultures. Like us, we know that it's there for like advocacy and making sure there's true equality and places are inclusive, but what does that really mean, and what type of policies affect that? Both governmental policies, different political bills and stuff that affect different things, like the equal the like the whole non-compete clause is being removed, and how does that affect people working while black? How does like the knowledge that there are more black owned business that exist in recent years, but most of them are solopreneurs, so they're not even equipped to take advantage of a lot of government benefits that exist for businesses that have multiple employees, like official literal W2 employees, or there's just a lot of additional things that I think everyone it would be beneficial for us all to know, so that we can better advocate for ourselves and
Hmm.
support people who are advocating. Like the Crown Act, for example. um Dove has been a huge um supporter of that movement, but like I, I I can't name that many people who are actual, like, not influencers talking about it, but the actual people who are creating the policies and advocating behind the scenes in these rooms for it. So another
Hmm.
goal of mine is to share more insight in a digestible way, um, about what's going on and what's affecting us without us even realizing it. So
Hmm.
that's what I would like to see in the next 5 years. It's a little less sexy, but it's like just that education piece. Because I think that
Hmm.
racism isn't, like, people always say it's not going away in our lifetime, and they're right. But I do think there are
Hmm.
things that we are going to see in our lifetimes, but it's just like an awareness thing. Kind of similar with
Right.
politics, right? Like we're talking about like the major issues, but there's all these like little things happening that affect these major issues. Um that are just happening, these games that are being played, and it's like
Hmm.
I want to know that game. What game are we playing? I want to understand the rules that they're playing by, the cheat codes that they're using,
Hmm.
and just kind of share more of that information, with our own community. Like this is the last thing I'll say. There was this video that I just came across, It was like all about the secret to selling to Negroes. It was a short documentary that was created in like the 1900s, like whether it was the 60s or 70s, I don't remember. It may have even been the 50s, but it was supported, produced by like companies like Jet Magazine and stuff. And it was all about these companies wanting to come together so that corporations could understand how to sell to black people so that we weren't getting left out of opportunities like home ownership and all these different things. It's like this kind of consumerism driven thing so that companies were investing in black media and black business and all this stuff. But at the same time, it's kind of weird. Like the secret to selling to Negroes just feels kind of like manipulative as well there too. So there's just all these like little kind of things that aren't as uh popular as like the problems where like the CEO of Wells Fargo thinks that there aren't any qualified black candidates that exist. It's like some of these other things that happen that influence that type of thinking. So that's what I personally would like to see more of. And then also, I just want to see more black businesses grow to a point where we're hiring employees and actually not adopting supremacist models into our organization, but creating things that are kind of culturally in tune, but also putting in kind of operations so that people can run like efficiently. So that when like Keith Lee comes through, he doesn't have to be like, why y'all sloppy? Get it together. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Nice.
Any
And
questions or comments?
yeah, let's go to where we left off. Okay, here we go.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Katie Groom says the thing about LinkedIn as it that we reach out that trolls employer. Okay, got
That
you.
we can reach out to that
Okay.
yeah, for sure.
And people do.
hmm
Mm-hmm.
And Stephanie says at Kenny Groom, she's at Audio Oasis Storytelling Podcast. Stephanie says at Kenny Groom, yup. Hashtag got him. Hashtag boom. All right,
Mm-hmm.
Kenny comes back and says, if we all had a quarter for each time DEI has been used over the last 5 years, we'd have a
Mm,
whole bag of money.
mhm.
Yeah. And this is Car Screech. Say what now? The secret to selling. Okay, the N word. I'm screaming. Do slam. I think we need a
I
link to that.
I think I've seen that clip.
You seen
I've
that?
seen that. Yeah.
Okay,
You
can
know,
you will you add it?
I first saw it mentioned. I think Roland Martin was talking about it. There's a TikTok
Mm,
video, and then I went on a
Mm-hmm.
whole deep dive, and I found the video. But actually, I never got to finish it because it was like I was doing this at like 1 a.m. and I was like, okay, now if I keep watching this, I'm gonna be up all night. I got a long day of work tomorrow. So like I was getting ready to create a whole like series, like sub series just about
Oh
that. So
wow.
still on it. So y'all kind of reminded me of this. So I need to go back to it. But yeah, I'm gonna share some links
Definitely.
around.
Working right now. All right, I got
Mhm.
one last question before we talk about what your podcast is, and
Let's
this was what
go.
Jen told me to go read about this video. This was about growing your brand without selling out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that everything y'all talked a lot about stuff that was there that I enjoyed. There was this word that they used, MVPs. Okay, kindly let us in on that MVP statement.
All right. MVP. So we know that as most valuable player, right?
Right.
But so I did this piece of content with someone named Chris Ward Jr. And I love shouting him out because he's just so interesting. Like he's someone who's he's
Yes.
exists in social media. He's a brand strategist. He's a storyteller. He understands marketing, communication, all these things. When you meet him, he usually says, he's a storyteller or something like that. Because that's really kind of what a lot of this kind of uh, it's like the source of everything. And he's someone who like will come up with these different concepts, and I'm like, what you talk? What? Huh? MVP, most valuable. What's that to do with? And so I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest with you. I'm on my growth journey as well, and I didn't expect him to pull up with that. So I actually need to. I'm still. I'm working on some content from that conversation, and one of those things is going to be the MVP. So I actually still need to do my homework on that. But I will, you know what I'll do specific since y'all asked about it. I'm going to kind of create a clip from that and I'll share it with y'all. Y'all can kind of publish on your own platforms and stuff. So, that, you know, because I think it's all about kind of spreading that message around. I think it was really interesting because the whole conversation was around building your brand, not necessarily just for like, you know, virality or fame, but how do you use it to communicate more effectively? Like how do
Mhm.
you use it in the workplace where people may not understand you? Like it's all about like how do you understand the game that's getting played and um start to build recognition in your workplace so people know that when you speak it's like hold up, let's listen to what Jen's about to say because you know she got that MVP down, right? But one part of it that he kind of added or not added in, but like he's just so like he just thinks like 10 steps ahead. But the S part, MVPs, and he added that in afterwards. And that part stands for strategy. And it's basically like pulling together the MVP part into that and being just very intentional about how you use it. So I didn't do my homework. You caught me. You caught me. I actually need to go back to my own content like that. This whole series, like I said, is not even about me. I have stories of working while black. I've
Mhm.
got tons of them, but the reason I started it was because I'm still on my learning journey and I'm
Mhm.
speaking to people who have gone through their learning journey. They're not done learning, but they've gone through something that they can now talk about.
Mhm.
And Chris has a lot to talk about. So I always like to bring him on when it comes to communication, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's as a content creator wanting to if
Mhm.
even if you want to go viral, he's got stuff for you. But if you're looking to be intentional with what you're doing, and doing it in a way that's not blueprint, right? Because every single coach out there, they've got like a blueprint for you to follow. Do this and you'll be this. Like everyone's got that. But the problem with blueprints is like they're building a blueprint based on their own experience and what they did, and we're
Mhm.
all individuals. There's different kind of nuances to how we create. Like I've signed up for stuff, great information, highly recommend it, but I just know I couldn't execute on that because that blueprint isn't right for me. But he's someone who helps you kind of create your own blueprint. So um Chris Ward Jr., he's the guy to talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Sambaza, since you brought that up, I'm curious with you, when you heard that, what type of um kind of reactions did you have to that? Did it change your perspective, or did it make you go like, "Aha, I knew it"? Like, what were some of your kind of reactions to that specific moment?
It was that was an aha moment when
Mm,
he said it, and he broke it down like he was slicing butter with a hot knife. And even you looked like you were so enthralled at the point when he added the S, and he was like, "Boom, here's the S
Mhm.
strategically," you know. And I was like, "Wow, never thought about doing that." And when you add it, it still makes sense. MVPs, but that S part, yeah, it really made sense. And I would like people to go back and to watch that particular episode to understand, because it's not just that
Mhm.
part. There's a lot that you can get from that regarding how to move in spaces. I like to shout out to Talk Ish with P. That's
oh,
Paula.
Paula.
Yeah, that's her. And she's coming out and saying hello. Say Chris, dope as AF, 100%.
Mhm.
Stephanie of Audio Oasis Storytelling Podcast says shout out to Chris Ward. He's a beast, brilliance in action. And Paula says amen to that.
Mhm. Thank you guys for commenting. I don't think we ever been this popping. I'm geeked about that. Okay, shout out to the chat.
Shout out to the chat. Yeah, y'all doing your thing out here. Y'all should go live more. You know what's cool about live shows? And I this is like a like I mean, I guess a secret kind of because it just influences how I do live shows. But
Mhm.
I'll have things I want to talk about, people I want to talk about it with. But something I tell people before I go live is that, like, honestly, it's like it's our show. We're doing this together, but it's not really about either of us. It's about
Yeah.
whoever shows up. and it's about making sure that they are one either entertained, they are informed, and if they're not, understanding that and being able to pivot real time to address whatever it is that is most important to them. So like
That's
I
true.
have guys, but I kind of throw them out. So like anytime people show up, it's like, yo, that's what's up. That's what's up. And you've had people kind of rocking with y'all since the beginning. So this is really special. It's really
It
special what y'all
is.
have. So yeah, shout out to y'all.
Thank you. And I want to say, when you did some of your live streams with Steve, I want to say I jumped on a couple of those.
Mm,
I don't know if you remember, but I was just so in tune because I think I was like going through all the transitions and careers and stuff. I
yeah.
was like so into that content. And shout out to Steve. He's awesome too.
He's another one of them, man. Steve is like I feel so blessed, and I think it's because like I remember when first starting out with my podcast, a lot of people who were struggling with guests, and I was not. It's actually to a point where I'm actually overwhelmed with the number of people who have agreed to go on my show. That it's like
Oh,
I can't fit it, and it's not because necessarily. I mean, I do okay. I do have a great way of going about what I'm doing, but the real reason I have this
come on, great.
problem is I'm learning to acknowledge what I do well. I'm learning real time. But the what I think is the real reason that people agree to join on and share, like these people who have done such amazing things like Steve, like Chris, is because like they kind of see the vision and know that what I'm doing isn't like a self-motivated thing. It's a community driven content, whether it's the Working While Black show, whether it's Boss Locks, whether it's like the LinkedIn audio events or live streams I do. It's all driven by like sharing with the community and people like black people, I think for the most part culturally are we're just always brought up to look out for each other. And so that's it's just so cool. And Steve's definitely one of those people. He's out here just super influencing up right now. I'm trying to keep up with him, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm sorry.
That's
You were
amazing.
about to ask a question though, right?
No,
Now,
we were just
We're
kind
just
of, we were
talking.
gonna,
Okay.
we're
yeah,
just freestyling right
I was
now.
just the
trying to,
ancestor was speaking through me, so I was just
trying to
wasn't there.
get back to a point, but because you mentioned all those great people that we know, it is kind of a great community that we are a part of. And we're just gonna go ahead and shout out some other people. Shout out to the C4, shout out to Dom. He should be listening in. Him and his wife. His wife just started a podcast. I
Okay.
mean, it's just so many dope people that we know. So shout out to the community that we do have. We can't trust everybody, but the ones that we can, shout out to
Shout out to the lost souls. Lost souls. They'll get found. They find their way one way or the other. They find their
yeah.
It's
way.
true. And just like you said, you get overwhelmed with so many people coming to the show. I mean, just like right now, we just had a conversation, and I'm like, hey, I just found out I can offer you an African perspective of how, we get treated at work
Hmm.
as as Africans. That's a whole different genre in itself. It's still walking while
Hmm.
black, but also throws a little bit of difference in the way we work, even though we're all regarded the same. But hey, not all Africans are the same. We're all different too. You see?
Absolutely. I mean that
Yeah.
right. What's interesting about what you just said there, right? It's like I think it's just like we all know there's just like hella countries in Africa, but we just look at Africa as one thing, and that's just doing such a disservice, right? Because like we're so you're African, but where exactly? Like what country?
I'm from Kenya, and Paula is
Kenya.
from Tanzania. You see, like you say,
Look at
we
that.
sure ain't. She's just right next door to me.
We
In
sure ain't. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So that's what's up. That's what's up. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's like there's just so many different just cultural things within that. And yeah, I would definitely and see, yeah, back to like the whole overwhelm thing. I'm like, hell yeah, let's schedule some time. But then I'm like also like, we could do the interview. Doing the interview is no problem. It's all about getting it out. Because I have
Mhm.
right now, I have enough content to last me the whole year just
Do
with the Working Well Black
you?
show.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
And I'm still recording content because I can't stop. So it's a problem. It's a problem.
Hey, power to you. Power to you.
You
Send
gonna have
me
to start something
voice.
else.
Honestly, I think of new
Right.
shows all the time. So shoot, when someone throws a bag of money at me, it's like we on 24/7 content network. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. So we wanted to pivot and talk about your other projects, and you kind of mentioned that you may have to start something else, and you do have some other projects. So we just want to let you share any other projects that you have to share, and then again remind us about the newly launched podcast.
Yes, yes. You know, I was actually about to say something else, but I remember what you talk about. Um in addition to kind of what I'm doing just creatively, I kind of like to been lately I've been calling myself like Batman, right? During, at night I put on my Batman cape and I go fly in the content streets and doing all these things. But during the day, I put my Bruce Wayne suit on and I'm actually at a network called the Urban One Podcast Network. And I'm kind of in the mix of like content and marketing. That's my world. But it's a new network and we just launched the Kid and Play podcast or the Fun House with Kid and Play. And
Nice.
it's just so cool, right? Because it's like just seeing that is just so inspiring because what we're seeing is not just them coming together or they've always been together but like doing a podcast together and bringing all these stories and icons and also embracing the new school of things as well. But what's so cool to me about it is just seeing like the longevity, the consistency and momentum, right? Because they are, been icons since
Mhm,
before I was born, and I was introduced to them more so from like a cinematic perspective with House Party, and that was like
mhm,
after they already kind of blew up, and then just like recently seeing them. Oh, but like one thing I didn't realize is that they've been doing stuff for this whole entire time, whether it's tours, music, all sorts of stuff. They've been active, they've been together, and also independently doing all sorts of different things as well. But
nice.
that Super Bowl commercial that happened, or first a progressive commercial that ended up also being in the Super Bowl, which is so
Mhm,
cool because now it almost looks like it's almost like okay, they kind of took momentum and just kept it going, and they
mhm,
I got to just meet them virtually and just like even in their downtime they still have that same energy. It's like they just keep going and they love this stuff and just seeing like them being able to take something like podcasting and get into it, which is so special. Like what
mhm,
we saw with Shannon Sharp and Cat Williams earlier this year was just so. I mean, there are a lot of different ways to look at it, but one particular thing I just keep thinking about is like, wow, what a beautiful moment for podcasting, where
mhm,
it created such a cultural impact and monetary impact and broke records. It's like, okay, black podcasts. It was like almost like a moment where it was kind of proof of what could happen when you kind of use your voice and kind of
mhm.
communication. So I'm just excited for what they're doing and how it supports everything else that they do as well, and also being able to be a part of it. So yeah, I don't I do I don't think the best way to say this, but essentially, like I think I used to like look for a lot of like podcast clients, and now I'm in this position where I get to support specific people's kind of their dreams, their business, their content on this black owned network, and it's kind of dope. So yeah,
Definitely.
there's more to come for sure. More to come for sure. I'll keep you all up to date.
Jen,
Yes.
he's trying to make it sound in the on the low, but it's high profile. What he's
Come
doing,
on
man,
now.
that's like you know what you're doing. I think in my mind when you just said that, it's like somebody who's into gaming and is told, okay, you go to work and you can play on any type of game you want for the next 8 hours, or for 40, or maybe like 32 hours you're going to be playing on games for the
You-
rest for the week, and then
You're
the rest
right.
of the time, yeah, we're going to have some meetings to discuss, what type of game, what you think about it. That's what you're doing right now.
Yeah, No, you're right. You were right. Actually, I will say it's not lost on me that like when I even on days where it's like whatever, because work is always, it's like there's always stresses and stuff. But even on the long days, I'm like, yo, we're creating podcasts. Yo, it's kind of dope, right? That's my
Yeah.
9 to 5 is making podcasts happen. So yeah, it is dope. It's not lost on me. Once again, learning to acknowledge the things I do and everything. But y'all, what y'all are doing is trying to turn me into Connie, and I'm trying to avoid getting to a point where I'm like, I'm the best. Like all this stuff. But y'all keep gassing me up, so I need y'all to chill. I need y'all to
We gotta give you the
chill.
flowers. We gotta give you the
No, I appreciate it.
flowers.
Yeah,
Flowers
for
received.
sure.
Flower
One
received. I got a
comment.
vase for them. Thank
We got a comment here from Paula. Where she throws in about too much content is a problem. No content is a problem, but too much too much content is a better problem.
Oh my
Okay.
God,
I'll take that.
Paula.
Follow the prophet out
I'm
there.
gonna quote that forever. Forever. Oh
Come
my
on, man.
God.
All
But
right,
too much
Paula.
content is a better problem.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? You're right. So that episode Sambaza that you were talked about with the MVPs, that's very,
Mhm,
very new. Within the past
mhm,
this month it was recorded.
mhm.
The first episode I released was from 2022.
Okay.
And if you were listening or watching, you wouldn't know just because of like the conversations that are happening.
For
But I've had that
sure.
for 2 years. And that's happened with a number of things where I've had things for a long time, but just the way I create content, or even if I didn't, I just know how to make it evergreen. So,
Come on now.
um,
Didn't I tell you that somebody's evergreen?
oh yeah, that's the reason where it's like overwhelming, but at the same time, I know I can always do something with it. But it's just a lot to have in your head when you have like 50 or like 20 to 50 episodes basically just swimming in your head, and just like, oh, what do I release this? Do I release this? Okay, when I release this, I need there's like three other things I could do with it as well. Like
Mhm.
if I really just didn't sleep for a week, I actually would be able to create. I could take one conversation and have like one conversation on LinkedIn, another conversation on TikTok, another on Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, fan base, Patreon,
Mhm.
fourth wall, YouTube. This is what kind of goes in my mind all the time, and when I get overwhelmed, it's just like
Oh
I
wow.
know it's just like when you know how to do something, it's and you want to do it, it just kind of messes with you.
Okay. The wheels are turning, so I'm kind of getting inspired. Yeah. No, for
Yeah.
real.
Yeah, I
For
thought you said
real.
expired at first, like too much, like like expired, like gone
Oh
bad.
no,
But then,
inspire.
yeah, that's why I laughed. I was like, "Oh my god, yeah, inspire." Yeah, no, that was on me.
I
That
was
was on
like,
me.
oh my god,
Yeah,
what's
I was
happening?
laughing at myself. Then I was like, "What are
No,
you
no.
doing, Walt?"
I know, but I got excited when you said our evergreen because we were just talking about that. You was like, "What
What
the
were
hell
you
are you
talking about?
talking about?" Well, I was saying I want to do more evergreen content because with this podcast was initially talking about news stories and kind of timely things, and
Mhm.
so I definitely care about these stories that definitely impact our culture. But I definitely want to create content that is evergreen and still about the culture, still about these topics that impact our people, our lives, and then and we have kind of just with this kind of partnership, found some things that is kind of right in with what I want to do. So
That's
that I
what's
think
up.
will be impactful. So I appreciate. I love having content creators come on just to kind of, get the wheels, juices, and creativity, flowing. So I appreciate
Okay,
you
absolutely,
sharing. Yeah.
absolutely.
And
Yeah, I appreciate.
I think we have somebody coming in here. Denise from Healing Sessions. The Healing Sessions heal, empower, and release. Says
Shout
hello,
out to
fam.
Denise.
What's going on?
Hey, Denise.
Oh, this is
I got a
Denise
question.
Daniels. Hmm.
I've always been thinking about asking you. Jen, part that question, right? From my side, Walt, what would you prefer? Bad boss lots of pay, good boss, less pay. Which one will you take?
Mm, kind of disappointed myself with this answer, but good boss, less pay. Just because. Well, okay, you know what? I left a place that paid. It was to this day I've not gotten paid that much since, and it was a contract as well. And when you have a contract, you usually get paid more because you don't they don't have to do taxes. Actually, hold up, no, the contract that contract actually taxes were already taken out. Still, I was getting paid way more than I'd ever gotten paid before, and I left because the the organization was a mess, and I actually felt like probably not the best person for this role. So I was like, let me just leave before a problem happens. It was a moment where the boss was supportive to an extent, but when going to I was in a project management, it's a project management type of role, and I realized that okay, you know what, this isn't the right organization for me. But when speaking with the team, there was a problem where everyone felt like there was a right way to do something, and it was such a technical project that they were doing that I didn't even understand what they were talking about as well as like super high level development. And I had done things what they hired me for I've done before, but it was in a different type of setting where there's more everyone was on the same page. So the real problem wasn't just managing the project, it was getting the people on the same page and like their belief systems that differed. And that was just like because I didn't speak that developer language, and I was also the time crunch as well. I was like, nah, y'all need someone who's more of a developer who could build all this out. So it was a situation where, and then when I tried to start to communicate that, just the boss was not receptive at all, and we started freaking out. They were like, I don't know anything about what's going on, which is kind of funny because what they told me in the interview was kind of what was going on, but for some reason, all of a sudden, they didn't know what was. It was weird. It was a weird thing, and I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, this ain't for me. So my first answer was going to be like, give me that money, I'll stay anywhere. But I know about, like, I joke about selling out, like can't wait to sell out, but I can't. I just won't take the money. I'll leave.
For
So
sure.
shout out to the organizations that are barely paying people but are amazing places to work. Shout out to y'all. I've left those two because it was just too little pay. It's just, shout out to America. But yeah, it's expensive out there.
And those places will cut you too. Couple
They
nonprofit.
will.
Come on now.
Oh my god. Yeah. If you were in a super healthy work environment, you're either made it or you've been drinking the Kool-Aid a little too much. There was this one place I worked at and it was amazing. I remember when I first got the job, I was talking to someone about it. They're like, it sounds kind of culty. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess it does. And then like 7 months later, I realized, oh no, it is culty. It's
Oh
culty.
no.
It's super culty. I gotta get out.
Oh
So
no.
yeah.
Get
Pay
out
was
for real,
bullshit.
right?
Yeah, right. Oof.
Wow.
Yeah,
Little teacup. Okay.
yeah.
Wow. Okay. So oh my God. Thank you so much, Walt, for joining us. We went over the time that we were planning on, but this is just amazing. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you, and I appreciate y'all a lot. I appreciate what you do, how you do it. What episode is it? What number is this? Like one what
55.
120 150? That's what's up. That's what's up.
Yeah. So
Round
I
of
think I got a
applause.
comment here from Paula. She says, "I'm too hungry right
thanks.
now. Give me a stack bad boss for a few months to stack up
Hey,
or make the
Well,
next one. LOL. Getting with the exit strategy.
you
Getting
know
with the
what?
exit
strategic.
strategy."
Okay.
That money it helps. It does help. I'm not gonna
Mm.
like yeah. Collect what you need to collect.
Yeah, and if you are in a good paying job, stack your cheese because you never know when things will change. I remember the one good job where like you said, the place where you've made the most you've ever made, and then whoof, it was
Yeah.
all good just a week ago. You know what I mean?
Right. And I guess with
Oh,
that, Okay, see, this is the problem. See, at the beginning, I asked you how long do you want this, and I forgot that you said a certain time, and I'm out here just adding things on to the conversation. So this is the last thing I'll add on to until
Okay.
Sambaza says something. I gotta be like, oh no, we gotta talk about that too. So, um, being at the bad work environment with the high money. So like in that moment, the story I just shared with y'all, I think I entered at the wrong place for me. If I had joined the company from another role or project management on another team, or if it was a situation where there was just more, it was just kind of different. It was just kind of different. I actually could have definitely lasted there and done great because I felt like I wasn't the right person, but at the same time, what I was doing was working. It was just I didn't want to deal with it. That
Mhm.
was a real thing, but I could have stuck around and continued to collect some money and everything. So back to kind of that conversation I had with Chris Ward Jr. and the MVPs. Another thing that we talked about was understanding what game is being played, understand the
Mm,
rules, how it's played, and and then kind of figuring out how you could play it so that you could win. Understanding the cheat codes
mhm,
and not cheat codes so that you're cheating, but just like more like those combo moves you could do to get ahead and everything. So I
mm,
think that's what it's really all about: bad work environment, good work environment. Um, I think that's all perspective. It's all about like, can you play the game and are you comfortable playing that game as well? I think that's really like once you get somewhere, you got to understand the game, know how people are playing it, and figure out if you want to play it too. So
right.
And also, you are in their playground. I'm not going to say that's the last thing I'm going to say about it,
Mm.
and then just people can
you're
go
like
ahead
me.
and
That's the
back.
last thing. That's the
Yep,
last.
that's it. So, Walt, uh, I think at this point, boss locks, just run us down through all your socials because I know it's not just one, not boss locks. You got a whole lot of social media accounts that we got. We're going to hear from you, and how do people get a hold of you, and how do they engage with you in these spaces? And maybe somebody who will listen to this might want to reach out to you and come and talk about their experience on working while black.
Absolutely. It's funny you say that because something I want to do is have more live environments where I can hear those stories so that you're not telling me a story next week and then you don't hear from it until 2 years later. More interactive environments where we can grow real time. Um, so yes, socials, boss locks as BOSSLOCKS. The K stands for knowledge of self. That's on Instagram. But you could also find me. It's the Great Walt. That's ITS the Great Walt on Instagram and all those platforms. Use those two handles, and you'll more likely find me. YouTube. I'm investing a lot of energy right now. The channel's called Boss Locks Media. You can find me in LinkedIn, Walter Gaynor the second. You can literally find me on all of the platforms by searching my name. But something that I'm testing out, experimenting with right now is less about social media and more about that direct contact and communication. And so if you text me at 914-353-4176, it's a service I'm using, this kind of CRM that kind of brings everything in one place. And I'm excited about it because it could be like the one source for community. So whether I choose to go all out on Instagram, whether I choose to create a whole Patreon, and not even like a paid Patreon has free tiers now and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Whether I choose to go with Fourth Wall, which is a great place for creators with merch and selling digital products, whether I choose to create a Facebook group. What I choose to do all these things. The one thing that is the truth, the ways you always get in touch with me is that number 914-353-4176. Thing that you could text. You could text on. And yeah, so that's something I'm experimenting with right now. Email
Mm.
newsletter as well, but that number is connected with the newsletter as well.
Okay, great.
But yeah,
We'll have that in the notes, guys. So if you didn't catch the number, check the show notes. It'll be there. We'll get the audio episode together so that you will have that number in the show notes. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate Sambaza and Walter for joining in this a really great conversation. I am just full, and I'm just so geeked about what we've shared. So yeah, please tap in with the content and also with the Sambaza podcast. We have great content with Mr. Sambaza as well. So, any other thoughts, Sambaza, briefly before we wrap?
No, I really want to, last but not least, I just want to thank you, Walt, for everything that you've done. People need to realize what kind of library or what kind of information you have on the Boss Locks Media platform, plus the LinkedIn, because I mean, you've done great things. And please, guys, just go ahead and get onto Boss Locks Media on YouTube and listen to what he has to say, and then also on LinkedIn. And with that number, I'm pretty sure you'll create a great community. And I don't know, I want to hear what you're gonna come up with that number. We're gonna have to talk about this with that number
Open
and
book.
the project you're coming with. So with that being said, I wish you the best, and I want to thank you for
Mm.
coming on to the show.
Definitely.
Yeah.
For
I
sure.
received that, and I appreciate y'all a lot. This really does mean a lot to me. So thank you very
Yeah,
much. Thank you all for catching us live. Thank y'all for rock with me, everyone. Kind of watch or kind of replay. Appreciate y'all too. If we're not already connected, please reach out, hit me up. And I'm done, Jen. I'm done. I don't want to get in trouble with you. But no, we're good.
for sure. Okay, excellent. And shout out to the chat. Shout out to the replays. If you enjoyed what you saw here, please reach out and like, share, subscribe. Okay. And until next time, take care. Well, stick around so we can say our proper goodbyes. Uh,